then, and I think this was the way that the Buddha uh, saw um, that quality definition or that translation of sorrow as a reactive state that contributed to collapse, to overwhelm, to confusion, um, to being immobilized was a word I used. I suppose all of us could think of our own. And the far enemy of sorrow can become cruelty. If we are not careful to recognize our sorrow, to develop a wholesome and skillful relationship to our sorrow. I guess we could even say sadness, possibly, but I'm going to stick with the sorrow word. If we don't turn towards it, if we don't cultivate the training and the qualities for opening rather than contracting, which will always lead to reactivity and then that falling into the well of sorrow, I think it could easily lead to, at the minimum, unwholesome states. The kleshas of restlessness, of immobilization, of sluggishness, of do nothing, of look the other way. We see all of these as hindrances on the path rather than contributing then, as I was saying, that I believe sorrow also can be, which is this catalyst, this ignition switch towards the wholesome, towards the skillful, towards equanimity, actually, and compassion. And that's what I thought we would work a little bit on today, is starting to practice with and make some distinctions between these qualities, this quality of sorrow that checks us out, that tanks us, that takes us under, versus the quality of sorrow that in its recognition. And then I think a very difficult part of the realities of sorrow, because it is not necessarily a pleasant or joyful experience, how to stay with it in a stable way, with a stable mind and open heart. And I will work on that today. And thanks to Annika, because I saw the truth of sorrow in her on Saturday. I see you now, Annika. Good morning. And then we pay very, very close attention. Then we have to move closer to our sorrow, not shut down, collapse with it, so that we can use it, the very distress, on the path to cultivating compassion. And we might even begin often, isn't it so? It has been true for me, with compassion for ourselves in that suffering. Right? We begin right there. This is an opening rather than a closing. Can I have compassion for myself in this moment of sorrow, which allows for the beginning of the wholesome states of stability, of concentration, of kindness to begin to be fertilized and ignited. I'm going to stop for just a second before we start the practice, just to see if people understand what I'm saying. Does this make sense? Yes, I knew it was a good teaching, Annika. Thank you. It's a good teaching for all of us right now, because I know that there are, for a lot of the truths of loss, of grief, of endings, of things not going the way we want, there really is sorrow, and you can feel it. And I don't want us to then take sorrow and turn it into a problem. What I'd like us to do is see if we couldn't take sorrow and actually use it as the heart opener from the very direct experience and from the stability of mind that we have been working all this time to cultivate. So is there a way to hold the aching heart in the stable, still and grounded mind? And in fact, in the Christian faith, they see that as the cross, the stability in the vertical, that each moment holding, 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 holding. And this horizontal line being our humanness, in which we are opening, 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 and opening. And that's a beautiful symbol, then, isn't it? Whatever your tradition or faith, for these coming togethers of this equanimity and this complete, boundless, open heart to the truth of our greatest nature. I'm glad that this is making sense to somebody. It's good. You know, it's a dicey terrain often. So why don't we get settled, and then we'll practice with this a little bit, and then we'll maybe talk about it a little more, distinguishing where compassion, sorrow can take us into compassion, but when unattended, unguarded, unprotected, and in the instability of mind that can be swept up, will take us into suffering. And I think it's a beautiful distinction. And I wanted to focus on it today more than as an essential reality on the Bodhisattva path, more than I wanted to go off into a chapter on luminous radiance, heart mind. We'll do that after this, when we understand better that even in sorrow, even in the truth of difficulty, there really is a way, and it comes directly out of that vertical present moment, stability, rootedness, groundedness, and presence. I'm going to check to make sure that we are recording. It looks like we are. I'm going to read the little, I can't see it very well. Let me see if I can get a hold of it this way. Not doing so well, so hang on. I may have to have somebody else read that if I can't get to that in a quick moment here. Here we go. So this was just a little note on compassion that I saw and I thought was sweet. And so it says here, compassion. Have compassion for everyone you meet, even if they don't want it. I loved that. What seems conceit, bad manners, or cynicism is always a sign of things no ears have heard, no eyes have seen. You do not know what wars are going on down there. And this is my favorite line, where the spirit meets the bone. Where the spirit, there's that line, that vertical, meets the humanness. Bang, present moment, right there, right at the crucible. I don't know who wrote that. Oh, Miller Williams. I don't know who Miller is, but thank you, Miller, for that. I'm going to add where the spirit meets the bone. Let's sit together. I'm going to check into the gallery. Good to see everyone. And so let's sit. I'm going to take off my shoes. I always like making contact with the present moment, beginning with the body itself. And making contact is often the way we can best feel into the present moment using our very own bodies. So if you're sitting in as upright and dignified a posture as you can, letting it be, though, supported, relaxed, and comfortable. Having your feet folded to create a stable base or planted firmly on the earth. Feeling the weight, the stillness of the body as it sits. And as you rest in stillness for just a moment, it only takes a gap moment to begin to feel the sensations available in this present moment body. This body, just like this. You might be noticing an uprightness. You might be noticing an open heart or chest, an open front of the body. See if you can feel the sense of strength that allows for the holding of this body, both by the earth, by gravity, and by your own body itself. And then we slightly bow the head. Yvonne Rand, a very beautiful Buddhist teacher who I had the privilege of a retreat with at San Diego Hospice many years ago, who's recently died. Yvonne said, Americans lift their nose and chin up to the air in arrogance. And actually the posture is a dropping of the chin just slightly towards the chest so that the crown of the head points towards the sky. And then we settle the whole torso of the body a little bit back and over the hip so that it invites that open-heartedness. But it doesn't eliminate the protection of the naturally rounded shoulder. We don't over arch the back, which is another habit tendency. Let the shoulders be natural, heavy at the sides. But we're breathing in and out from that heart and belly. Let that be soft and relaxed. The hands are placed together or comfortably on the lap. The eyes move inward towards the nose and settle there naturally. The tongue is behind the teeth at the roof of the mouth, where you can then creates a little tiny vacuum almost and allows you to drop the jaw slightly so that you're not clenching or gripping or forcibly holding at all. And having established the physical body, we then turn towards establishing the posture of the heart mind. We recollect the essential vows and our commitment to be of least harm during this practice period. We place all judgments, all condemnation, all aggressions, all cruelty, all ill will, all attachment, and all aversion. We place it down. We recognize its contribution to our suffering and the suffering of others. And by that very placement, by that very release, by that opening, softening with each out-breath, by dropping into the body without concepts, without ideas, without preferences, without opinion. Get rid of all of that. It can't serve you here. We're just in the experience of the body as it is moving in and out with the breath. And in this stillness, in this open space, in this non-judgment, we're already contributing to the good. our good and consequently the good of all others. In our ease and our equanimity, in our open-heartedness, we are contributing to the whole of the world's being easeful, calm, stable. And that's the third aspiration, that we do this not only for ourselves, not only for those we love, not only for the people we know, but we continue to expand throughout the practice to include, to allow, to welcome all beings. We are practicing for us all. All beings without exception, omitting none, awakening us and freeing us all. And see if we can settle back, rest a little bit in this softened, available, present moment body. And see if we can remember that this is a joyful endeavor, that we have the privilege, actually, at this moment of the practice, of the teachings, of the teacher, of the Sangha, and of the truth. And we smile at that reality. How fortunate and blessed are we. You may notice sensations that you like and others that you don't like, but that's not the point of the practice. We're just opening into awareness and recognition. We're just inclining this attention towards this body, sitting here breathing. That's one of the first instructions from the Buddha. And we set ourselves in wholesomeness as we just did. No matter what comes now, we remain still, soften, open, non-judgmental, curious, and allowing. These are the qualities of mind we begin to bring to each breath. And in the Satipatthana, the Buddha himself said, no matter the quality of the breath, no matter its longness or shortness, no matter it's in or out, no matter the conditions of this present moment, we train thus to abide breath by breath. remembering that we're not thinking about the breath, we're not visualizing the breath, we're not constructing anything or fabricating thoughts about the breath, the practice, the breather. We're not evaluating the meditation. This is all useless and will spin us certainly into suffering. We simply abide, experience the breath directly, feeling the expanding and contracting wherever you notice it in the body. And cultivating this stability, this concentration, using the breath or the body sensations is essential to cultivating those higher, more wholesome qualities. Without this stability of mind, we will get swept up and carried away in attachment or aversion or both. And so it is essential that we take this time. And in the short teachings that we often do, one of my issues, of course, is that we don't take the time to scaffold ourselves very well before we try to jump in to compassion practices. It's a very dangerous thing. And so we just practice stability, groundedness. And it doesn't take very long, does it, before we begin to recognize this wily mind, the one that's going, I don't really like this breath. I don't really like sitting here. I really like distraction or entertainment or avoidance. Who needs the present moment? What about me? And I smile at all of that as it happens. And it will happen to a greater or lesser degree in every practice. So we just have to know that the egoic mind is here without difficulty or dilemma, but we're going to have to see it and hear it and begin to recognize that thinking mind in that way, no problem. But we don't get carried away by that. And part of where I think the meditation can go immediately wrong is we get swept up right away, which is, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. Well, of course, you're going to do that. The recognition, the smile, and the coming back to the body and breath is the point, and the practice. At this point in the practice, we don't, doesn't matter what the thoughts are. They're pleasant thoughts, they're unpleasant thoughts, they're scary thoughts, they're worrisome thoughts. We treat each thought in the same way, recognizing the thought is a thought, unhooking, smiling at our awakening, and coming back to the body and breath. And then we commit ourselves more again and again, anchoring ourselves to the present moment with just this one breath. And as he or she sat, the mind of the awakened one was unmoved. As we sit, we begin to feel the steadfastness, the stability, the growing concentration of the mind of the awakened ones. Unmoved, not carried away, not falling into reactivity, but stable, still, and present. And we settle in to that still point a little bit more. There is no more stability available than this present moment. And the awareness that is available right here. And then we can begin to direct and to employ this stability as we cultivate other wholesome qualities of heart and mind. And so, why don't we begin by practicing in a little shallow water by calling to mind a moment of worry or a moment of weariness, let's say, something fairly mild. A mild moment of distress. And recollect that, bring that moment with all of its vicissitudes, its qualities to mind. See if you can make contact with how that was for you. And mine was a very simple moment of having our counters start to be put in and seeing where the seam was, which was different than what we had agreed to. Very tiny moment, right? So we're going to begin working there, something fairly workable. But I got caught in a moment of reactivity, and that's what I'm asking you to make contact with. We bring the moment to mind, and then I'd like you to check in on the qualities that the body was experiencing during this mild difficulty. Picture yourself. Picture the circumstance. See if you can make contact with that contraction, tension. Maybe it's a heating up, restless or energetic sense. Maybe it's a flagging, weightedness, immobilization. But be careful, we're picking something fairly light. And I have a lot of energy in the body when I recognize this idea that I came to, that this seam is in the wrong place. So just feeling into the body right now, seeing how that is. You might even call out the particular qualities in the body. So I'm noticing a lot of tension around the neck and shoulder. I could feel an immediate squeeze in the area of the chest. There was a heat element for me. Like, stop. I'm just feeling into that. Staying in the recognition, being watchful right here that we don't fall over back into the reactivity. We have to stay anchored in our stable, aware mind. We're looking at the object or the phenomenon. We're not falling back in. Even as we are directly experiencing, this is the practice. We're not trying to recreate the distress. We're trying to cultivate qualities of clear seeing in relationship to this moment. And so calling out the sensations can be useful, naming them, or feeling them and offering the awareness itself as a balm, as an ointment, as an antidote. In the recognition itself, tight like this, heated like this, gripped like this, we are already beginning to awaken and are already turning towards freedom. Rather than resist the sensations, rather than fight with them, rather than judge them, which is just another version of a fight, or condemn them, we're simply letting them come and go. The mind of the awakened ones, unmoved. We're recognizing, allowing, and accepting. Here it is, just like this. And we're practicing for a few breaths, simply staying with the experience. And the practice here is staying with the stability, staying with the clear seeing. We don't even have to force or demand any kind of open-heartedness at this point. Just the allowing and the recognition itself is a long way on a path. Stay here, be with this. Your very bearing witness and being companion is a radical act of kindness and love. We haven't repeated any phrases. We haven't offered any hand over the hearts yet. We are cultivating this quality of heart-mind, a stable, unmoving quality of mind, and an ever appearing and present moment heart. And what happens with this moment by moment and breath by breath awareness is we actually begin to see the true nature of the experience. And so the restlessness, the heat that I had initially felt just by staying with it has actually shifted and changed. We don't try for spiritual bypassing here. We're not looking to get rid of. We're not looking to make it pleasant. We're not looking for something else. We're simply abiding. Clear seeing mind, present heart, opening to this. This is the allowing, seeing what happens. Noticing any habits to want to get out of here, getting bored, getting numb, shut down, or even confusion, like, what am I supposed to be doing? You're just touching in as you reflect on this distressing moment, seeing how you are. Quite simple. And you've got to be willing to let go of the last moment so that you can completely arrive to this present one. And from this bearing witness, from this being companion, from this opening again and again to this body, this mind as it is, what begins to happen is a natural insight, a natural bravery, and a natural openness begins to occur. This is the naturally arising compassion. We begin to feel for ourselves, because it is the only way, as we confront the truth of difficulty. And this is where we might greet this initial sorrow or sadness or feelings. Because as we turn towards the truth of suffering, there, of course, is the human response. And that's what I'm calling sorrow today. That I don't want this to continue. I want this to end. I have the natural wish for the end of this difficulty, this suffering, this challenge. And see if we can't drop into the heart space and feel where that tenderness, that openness, that ache might be, this response to the truth of distress. Breathe into it. We're not going to try to get rid of it. We're not turning it into something else. I can feel an achiness. It's almost like somebody punched me a little bit right in the chest. And I'm just placing my stable mind, my unmoving, clear seeing mind right there. And breathing. And I can already feel the genuine care that's rising. And we can allow this because we know that this is a part of being human. And we remember that not only me, but others feel this very feeling with these very sensations also. And we let the heart begin to open and respond. Remember, the very willingness to stay is a part of that response. The very return is a part of the response. The willingness to stay soft and stable and unmoving is also a part of the response. We can imagine those great arms of equanimity. That's the unmoving part of the mind. And compassion, this open, available, responding heart to hold this distress. And then what naturally happens is you notice with that clear seeing mind, that open, available heart, the nature of a response begins to occur very, very automatically. And so my hands just naturally, I could feel them wanting to come up and just embrace this heart. And so I'm going to place my hands there. That might feel right or not right for you. It doesn't matter. That's just one of the responses. Staying in contact with the truth, offering a holding, an open space, a kindness and passion in this way. Maybe some endearing phrases or loving kindness phrases. May you be free from this distress. May you have ease. May you rest in the great heart mind. Know you are being held. We could invite a visualization, someone who loves us, a deity, shining a light, offering the antidote, picturing them sending these blessings to us, letting it enter our own open heart. And so this is very different than indifference. This is very different than trying to get rid of anything. It's very different than judgments. We let whatever is present be here. That great awakened, unmoving mind. And this beautiful, boundless, responding heart. This is the perfect balance of equanimity. Wisdom and compassion come to bear in this present moment. And we breathe it in completely as we did in the stabilizing portion of the practice. We take in that nourishment, that sustenance. We offer it as completely as we can, first to our own hearts, then to the whole of the body, really immersing ourselves in this compassion, in this nurturing, in this responding, with a lot of space and a lot of room. There's room enough for this and more. And as you are ready, you may notice that the practice deepens itself. And I just made contact very naturally, just holding steady here, responding breath by breath, open-heartedly here. I just made contact with another a point of unpleasantness or suffering. Something else just came to mind. This is often the way. It may not happen that way, in which case you just stay with what's here. But another moment just came to mind. So I'm going to offer this very same process. I'm just going to hold it for a time, making contact, letting it reveal itself in the body and in the heart space. I'm going to hold that moment, that awareness in mind. Maybe you're still working with the first one you have. Just let it naturally, organically do itself. And remember that if we get fatigued, if we feel like we're finished, if it feels complete for us, we can simply come back to rest in what is now that open, spacious heart mind. We can breathe in and out, sending that goodness, that abundance, that nourishment throughout the body. I've got another even slightly deepened twinge, pain, ache in the heart. I'm not going to ask a lot of questions of that right now. I'm just holding it. I'm breathing that stability right there, creating good space and room. And as I feel in, as I open to include, as I allow, that natural response, that natural bravery, that natural care begins to arise. There's nothing for me to do here but hold it lovingly, gently, compassionately. Nothing to fix and nothing to struggle with. Can we begin by letting it be as it is? And we only do this for a few moments. There's a weariness that will happen, a certain kind of fatigue. And it's actually not the fatigue of the heart, by the way, it's the fatigue of the stable mind. That's trained and concentrated. So we're just going to relax back. Take a big breath, breathing in and out, settling back, just feeling back into the breath and the body. Resting and stabilizing the mind once again. Right there in the breath. Right here in the present moment. And the mind of the awakened ones was unmoved, and the heart completely open. All that is needed will come from this. From this clear seeing mind, unmoved. From this open, available, loving heart with naturally arising compassion. Resting then moment by moment, breath by breath, present moment. Cultivating perfect equanimity. And may this practice be of benefit. Just feeling into the body for a moment. No need to race or rush out of the present moment. Let's see if we can't stay there together by just feeling into the body as a whole once again. Offering some gentle movements, whether it's a stretch or twist. So I want to talk a little bit more then, now that you've had some experience yourself, on this idea of how we can use even sorrow on the path to awakening and on the path to cultivating compassion. And in fact, what do we already know? A couple things, right, that we already know, which is, for me, without the awareness of that sorrow, we cannot begin to turn towards the truth of suffering. And that's the way I know suffering myself often, is a feeling of pain, a feeling of sorrow, a feeling of grief, a feeling of, right, something welling up in me that is awakened. And I don't think that's something that we as humans can or should try to get out of. I think it's a part of that awakening in us on the way to cultivating compassion. So the good necessary news is that there is the truth of suffering. And I think sorrow is a natural response to that, non-problematic. What also, though, then can happen, and this is what I want to talk about with all of us today, is that the hindrances can arise in relationship to that sorrow, for example, and it can take us in one of those two directions. And I'm going to name them briefly, and then let's talk about them. What do you know about these hindrances? One is that we can fall into indifference. We can feel the sorrow, but rather than be willing to move towards it, we conceptualize something. And one of the habits I know Zen students, for example, can easily fall into is treating everything as being empty phenomenon, for example. And so as an impressive move to be unmoving, and that's a completely misunderstood, isn't it? That's not the unmoving part. The clear seeing stable mind is the unmoving part, but you can mistake shunyata or emptiness for nothing. And so then you can go, well, empty phenomenon rolling on. Beautiful phrase means nothing if you don't understand it in a deeper way. And so you can move too easily into nihilism, into indifference, into apathy, might be one of the words. Anybody else have words for this? We can begin to shut down from the humanness of this experience into not feeling something for it. And it's very dangerous. Like, what can I do about it? It's actually on the way for me to hopelessness and overwhelm. And it can look passive and, what do you do? And so I think we know that one. That's understood to be the near enemy of compassion. And we might call it indifference or apathy. Something like that. And then we can fall also to the other side. And the other side then is falling over into the well of grief. so that we become immobilized, might be a word. We become overwhelmed. We become catatonic. Uh, we can't respond because we're so flooded by the truth of suffering. And we have lost our way there as well, because ultimately compassion arises from equanimity. It does not arise from this reactive state of overwhelm. I think is probably the best one. Immobilization, I suppose, would be slightly another version of that. And so equanimity lives really on the middle path. And that's why this is called the middle path, Madhyamika, between these habits of mind, to take the truth of suffering or sorrow in the world and to either go into nihilism, who cares anyway, I can't do anything about that, I got to worry about my own, we've all said it and heard it and have that mind as well as, oh my God, nothing to do, everything's too much. And so this continuing recognition and balance is essential. And that is the quality of equanimity that we are growing. And equanimity is necessary, not just something pleasant. It's necessary, that stable, unmoving mind of the awakened ones, necessary so that we can hold completely the human experience of sorrow, of pain, of loss, of grief, of confusion, whatever is arising, and then be stable enough so that we can respond appropriately, wholesomely, in whatever way is available to us. And in the West, we are very critical, and aren't we very condemning about the response, because we're accomplishers, we're productive. We think you should always know. It's not good enough to walk 20 minutes. You should be able to run a marathon. It's not good enough to have self-compassion. We should solve world hunger. And it's really dramatically egoic, by the way, doesn't allow for the natural, appropriate response of you this moment so that we can grow that then in whatever way is possible. So we're an all or nothing place. It's like either you fix it all or you leave. Get out. If you can't, find the cure for cancer, what's the point? And we like the fame of that. We like the accomplishment. We like the acknowledgement. We don't like the one small act. We're somewhat intolerant. And it's actually something we have to begin to move back towards. As Annika, for example, was talking about the fires in Colorado, it's not because she's going to be able to stop the fires, but it doesn't mean that there can't be a response. And it doesn't mean that the response doesn't matter. It, in fact, absolutely matters. Like each vote matters, like each moment of kindness and compassion matters. And we don't live in a vacuum. And so we just take the wholesome action, whatever we could see that might be. And from that comes other, what we know for sure, wholesome actions, including what we've talked about recently is necessarily non-reactive, non-action. Instead of just cause harm, instead of scream at the neighbor, instead of have an argument with the partner, instead of being critical, condemning of the self, we can actually choose the pause and nothing yet but the holding, right? Nothing but the holding, mindful, present, available, open-hearted, just holding ourselves in the present moment. So I wanted to further that discussion a little bit, because it's very easy in the truth of sorrow to take one of the two, fall into one of the two points of reactivity. And of course, then there's infinite, aren't there, points on that scale, all the way to completely cruelty. We can get into so much not caring in our sorrow, actually, that we'd rather hurt the thing then bear the discomfort of it. So that's actually an interesting default, isn't it? Which is, I can hate the thing that actually causes me to feel, and so would prefer cruelty or ill will or aggression to feeling that distress or that unpleasantness. And we all know about that, because that is the birth of all compassion and birth of all aggressions. They come from the same place, that point of sorrow, and then how to begin to respond. So I'm going to stop there and see if we can talk about this a little more together. And I wonder if Annika, I don't know if Annika's still here, but if she is,
I'm
Annika,
still here, yeah.
In particular, and I'm not picking on you, I hope you don't feel it that way, but because I was also touched by your pain and by your sorrow as it relates to the earth, which we all feel, and want to make sure that we know how to hold and be with and work with this. And this is nothing of any one person's, is it? This is the whole of our human experience. We are all experiencing in our way, and will again, the truth of this sorrow or this distress.
I also thought about that. Sorry, may I?
Since so,
and the positivity,
to just unmute and join or chat. Like to hear what you know about this and how you practice with this, or how the practice was today. We've done it before, of course. Let me know.
Diana, I thought of, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Diana? Hello?
The notion of positivity, thinking a positive thought can actually be a replacement for a negative thought, but actually they all end up just being thoughts. And replacing one thought with another, can be a pushing away of the sorrow. We don't see that as particularly wholesome, because in some way it's establishing a reactivity. Like, instead of thinking about the lemons, I'll think about lemonade. And so rather than that, I think the approach might be to first just recognize the pain, acknowledge the truth of it, rather than fix it, get rid of it, or ride over it with positive thought. Can we simply hold it in awareness with that steady, unmovable mind? And what you begin to notice from that is that there is a quality of heart that begins to form relationship without having to think anything, that says, I will stay present to hold this. So let's see if rather than think something else at all, we can just open the stable mind, the present moment mind, recognizing fear, recognizing sorrow, recognizing distress, and hold it in stability, stable mind, which is not thinking at all. It's just holding in awareness and presence, and then actually also opening one's whole heart. Turn on your speaker. Victor, You're having a hard time hearing me, it sounds like.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. No, Annika was talking and you didn't hear, so that's why.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm still not hearing her. Annika, can you try again?
So
Thank you, Victor. Can you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Annika, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying that. No, yeah, I understood the problem of positivity, but it feels to me like another way of shutting down suffering and pushing it away from you. So thank you for speaking a little to that.
Yeah, we like the idea of getting rid of, don't we?
Yeah.
And actually, we've got the bigger work of transforming by being with.
Yeah.
But we don't trust it very much, do we?
No.
No, I want to get out of there too. I just wanted those guys, I'll use myself as the example. I just wanted those guys to get a new piece of quartz. It really very right, small thing. It's like, wait a minute, I didn't ask for this. I told you where I wanted the seam was over here, not over there. And we all just stood in the kitchen. And they're going, oh, I don't know. And of course they don't know, they're just the installers, right? What do they know? And they're looking at me and I'm looking at them. And the best I could do is acknowledge, right? That was it. There's no fix. I was just saying, I recognize a couple things. One is you guys are not responsible. Number two, we're gonna have to stop so that I can think about this a minute and take a skillful action, right? Let's just hold steady, hold each other. They smiled. The guy was so delightful. He just smiled at me and said, this happens to me every single day. And the only thing I could feel was for this guy who must, right, in people's homes going, wait a minute, don't do that. Stop what you're doing. Don't work. You're getting it wrong. You're doing it wrong. And it was actually both lovely and beautiful. And at the end, the beautiful end was, I recognized that there was going to be nothing else to do with a little inquiry and stabilizing. And we were able to smile together, to laugh together, to say, first world problem, where the line is in the quartz, not make such a big deal out of it, but also hold each other, which I thought was amazing in this truth of distress, which is, yes, in this reactivity, no matter what it's about, we will be able to fall over, aren't we? Into more unskillfulness, and then in the worst case, indifference, apathy, leading to cruelty, which we don't want to do to ourselves or to others. But it is bigger work, isn't it? It's bigger work. And sometimes when we're drowning, the other thing I wanted to say is to recognize that it's too much right now. I can't hold this. I don't have the skill, the quality of mind, the quality of the open-heartedness, and that we then recognize that and feel for ourselves. I think this is as critical, and offer ourselves, just as we did today, what we need in order to then stabilize, in order then to find our way back into the present moment, to get steady once again. And sometimes for me, as I know for many of you, that means not watching the news, as an example. Like, I don't need more data about this. This is not going to be of service to me. I actually do understand the truth of suffering in this and for others. And listening to the more replay that doesn't actually serve me, it actually begins to fatigue me and collapse, so that the wholesome, skillful, these are critical words, responses to the sorrow are less likely to occur, because now they just feel deficient. I've made this issue gigantic in a way that the human actions that I could take to care for, to offer blessings, to make lasagna, to bring something to another that could be of momentary relief is not available because I've collapsed. And this is not helpful or skillful. And so watch yourself, because we can all find ourselves there, nothing to do, hopeless, pointless, don't bother. And then that's the collapse of the heart mind that can take, when it is available and present, a skillful, loving, and wholesome action. So be watchful of that. Other thoughts about this? Before we do the dedication? Hopefully you get the idea, right? Let's not push away, which is our habitude. Let's not push away the momentary unpleasant. It is actually necessary fertilizer for the cultivation of this responding, opening, and available heart. It is turning towards the truth of distress that we will then cultivate the responses that are skillful, wholesome, and loving. I'll wait another minute and see if there's anything else. This is difficult work. I think you could say, actually recognizing that it's difficult, I think, actually skillful. And also committing ourselves then more heartedly, isn't it true, Renee, to the practice and to the teachings. You just go, I've got to train in this stuff. I can't leave this to random heart mind. I'm going to have to stabilize every day. Every day. I'm some amount of time stability in shamatha. I'm going to commit some amount of time turning towards, just for these brief moments, the difficult, the sorrowful, the painful, and holding it with as much open-heartedness, kindness, and compassion as we can. And that's why we do more shamatha currently, more concentration and stability, more loving kindness or metta practice, because we stabilize in those phrases. May we be well. May we all be well. May we all be healthy, right? We just repeat, and in the repetition, we are cultivating a strengthening and a muscle and a practice that is essential. And that's why we train. That's why we train. Otherwise, I don't only think it's difficult, I think it's impossible. So I'm with you. Yes, things are happening, as Victor is saying, all the time. We are continually experiencing, right, gains and loss, fame and ill repute, pleasure, pleasant and unpleasant, right, gains and losses. It's a continuous flow in this human life of all of these things. And if we fixate on this, right, this one, both we lose wholesomeness, we over and crave, and then the thing we're craving is get me out of here. And yes, I think recognizing weariness, which is what I noticed for myself with the watching the news and the biases, and I just kept seeing it everywhere, by the way. I'm making a I see bias in every direction. Everybody tooting their horn, making their case, establishing their positions, that I became weary of the whole thing and thought, this is not serving me at this point. What can I do? I can support the values that I hold. I can support the candidates that I think can best represent those values. And I can encourage others to do the same. And that's something I can do. And that is a compassionate response also. That's the part I can do. It is easy to get lost in the difficulty. And that's why I thought this practice this morning was so important, because the balance of equanimity, the holding really into the middle way, into the middle path without tipping over into one direction or another. And by the way, what continuous mindfulness, isn't it? It's continuous work. Do it in the morning and we're good for the day. It's in the knowing, always checking into the present moment, right? That we are establishing step by step and breath by breath that stableness and that present moment groundedness. Yes, that knowing you've lost your balance is the beginning. It's a part of where I recognize sorrow myself. When I see that moment of reactivity that I just used as my example, I saw that my reaction to a scene, I don't have any judgment about it, but I felt the rise up and this stop, this is wrong. And just that I could recognize that was the beginning of the capacity to be able to respond. And I began by responding where? Not to the guys, but to myself, recognizing my own distress and choosing to take a moment to just hold and be with that in a loving way, rather than in a condemning or judgmental, or just knock it off, or just don't feel this way, right? It requires that we continue to drop into the present moment, to greet whatever is here. Whatever is here. And we don't like that either, because we don't like all flavors of the ice cream. We don't like all 31 flavors. We only like butter pecan. And when it's not a butter pecan moment, we want to get out of it or change it. And we can get very active, can't we? In going, no, not butter pecan. I want rocky road. I want life to offer me safety, comfort, pleasure, gain. And again, no right or wrong in that. It's just to recognize that we are in some way potentially resisting our direct human experience, which cannot be mindful, cannot be present, and cannot lead to the end of suffering. As much as we push away, as much as we try to fix, neither of these, we know it for sure, is workable. Yep, no waiting for life to be over. It's right here, right now. That's it. And then it's right here, right now, once again. Yes, there's the place between boundless sorrow and limitless. That's right. Both for earth and people and loved ones. Yes. That's where the open space is. That's exactly right. And as we watch, we see where we are beginning to tip, and we can right inward measure, the whole definition of meditation, by the way, middle, righted, right? Again and again, oops, a little too much into fix, oops, a little too much into hopelessness, a little too much into judgment, a little, oh, there I go, into just sorrow and overwhelm. I want us to watch for this. I think overwhelm is one of the best ways to catch. I think Victor's word tired, my word weary, a certain kind of hopelessness or apathy are the beginning standings of the points between that we can use. We can use all the points as a way of finding right inward measure, right? We don't get rid of them. We use them as reference points. We use them on the path to wisdom. Oh, when I'm like this, it's too much. And I fall over into hopelessness and into weariness. Oh, when I'm like this, I get too overwhelmed and then collapse into fatigue. Beautiful. Thank you all so much. This is beautiful work. And so we continue together, don't we? Necessarily together. We cannot do this big work, big, difficult, challenging, beautiful, life-transforming work. We cannot do alone. Without each other, we will not be successful on this path. And together, I have complete confidence, by the way, that we will abide and actually contribute, as we know, to the end of suffering and distress. Not just for ourselves, that's the good news also. And so let's just sit together for just a moment. Finding our way back into contact, direct experience of the body, however you're sitting right now. And then finding the breath, where you're breathing right now. And we begin to feel the wholesome reality, the beautiful natural equanimity of the present moment. We remember the stable mind. And you might notice to make contact with that first. Otherwise, that loving heart, that compassionate heart can easily get unanchored and fall over into distress. And so we bring that vertical and that horizontal cross right to that pinnacled present moment piece. We bring the stable mind where the spirit meets the bone. Isn't that beautiful? Where the spirit meets the bone. May we dedicate the merits, the blessing, and the benefits of this practice today. May we gather them all and offer them humbly, completely, wholeheartedly to the end of suffering and the realization of true abiding happiness and freedom. We offer this to ourselves, to our loved ones, to those who are hungry, lonely, fearful, to those who feel impoverished, to those who feel like they are not or do not have enough. We offer these blessings to them. May we all be happy. May we all be free from pain and suffering. We all live with ease. May we all rest in the great arms of equanimity, held by compassion and wisdom, protected and guarded from all afflictions. And may this practice today contribute. And so let it be a very good day. May it be so. So be it. Thank you so much for your practice this day and every day. If you would like the chapters on the Bhumis and the 11th Bhumi, we'll be reviewing the 11th Bhumi, the luminous, radiant heart mind, next week. That's just something like chapter 47. I do have a list already of a couple of you who do want that chapter. I'm not going to send the Bhumis chapter. I sent that abbreviated list last week. That feels like good enough. And if you'd like that, just let me know. I get about 3 of you down. I will be copying that today. I have a little time and space for that. Let me know if you would like that so that I can send that to you. Since most of you do not have the book, The Bodhisattva Path by Chogyam, and this would be somewhere there around chapter 47. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday morning at 7 a.m. I will be teaching again. Greg is continuing to be in the mountains, unavailable to Wi-Fi. So 7 a.m. on Thursday and then 7:30 this Saturday. I will look forward to seeing you then. Blessings to you all. Have a really wonderful day. Good to see you, Victor. Bye-bye.